Hey there, my friend. I truly appreciate you being here, and if you hit that subscribe button, my gratitude will only deepen. Now, let's get to it. She marked her so-called liberation right in the middle of our daughter's graduation celebration. With 50 people looking on, she ended our marriage and exposed her affair with a man I once embraced like family. What she didn't know was that I had been quietly preparing for this exact moment for months. So when I handed her that envelope, it didn't just mark the end of us. It signaled the unraveling of everything she thought was secure. The sun was shining too brightly for a day that cold beneath the surface. The rooftop was picture perfect. Champagne glimmered in the light, lilies perfumed the breeze, white linens danced in the wind, and a crowd of well-dressed pretenders mingled politely. In the middle of it all stood Emily, radiant in her red graduation robe, her laughter carrying the pure, reckless joy only youth can know. Her smile was the only honest thing in the entire scene. Delilah, gleaming in her sparkling gold dress, stood at my side. Occasionally her hand brushed mine, not tenderly, but with the precision of a stage cue. That's when it all clicked, every movement choreographed, every phrase rehearsed. She wasn't my partner anymore. She was performing a monologue in a play I never agreed to join. And I was her closing scene. But I didn't react. I said nothing, because I had already memorized the ending. The late-night reading groups, the odd charges showing up on our accounts, the scent of unfamiliar cologne on her coat. Jasper Maddox, my old friend, my doubles partner, the man who wept as he toasted us on our 20th anniversary. He was there too, loitering near the bar, eyes flicking nervously between us. He thought he'd won. Then Delilah raised her glass and delivered a smile so sweet it stung. "Let's raise a toast," she said. Cutlery paused mid-air. All eyes turned toward her. "I've chosen to begin a new chapter, without Lucas." No context, no regret, just a well-aimed detonation in front of our friends. Her smile, flawless. The collective inhale, on cue. Jasper's fingers brushing hers beneath the table. Laughable. I didn't flinch. I stood slowly, reached into my coat, and pulled out a soft, cream envelope I'd kept locked away for 2 months. I set it beside her plate. "For later," I said, each word deliberate. She gave a brief, confused glance. She didn't understand yet. But she would. That envelope held the truth, the receipts, the evidence, everything she had underestimated. Then I turned to Emily, kissed her on the forehead, and whispered, "I'm proud of you. Always." And I walked away. No spectacle, no argument, just the sound of my footsteps echoing against the marble floor as I left behind a marriage that had already died in silence. The air behind me went still. Delilah had no idea what kind of reckoning she had invited. What she didn't realize was that I'd known all along. Every piece had already been placed. It all started quietly, not with a fight or confrontation, but with a jacket, a navy blazer, draped neatly over a dining chair in the laundry room. Jasper's blazer. At first, I rationalized. Maybe he dropped by and forgot it. Maybe it meant nothing. But when I picked it up, the truth clung to it. Her perfume, nestled into the collar like a whisper. I stood still, the silence heavy. My lungs slowed. My thoughts didn't scatter. They sharpened. That was the moment. Not a breakdown, a clarity, a steel spine awakening beneath my skin. That night, she floated in humming. She kicked off her heels, waltzed into the kitchen, poured wine with a grace too perfect to be effortless, her hair pinned in that deceptively casual style she always wore when she wanted to look flawless without seeming to try. She didn't notice me watching. Later, in bed, her back to me, she whispered his name. Jasper. As if I didn't exist. As if she dreamed in his voice. I lay still. I stared into the ceiling's silence until dawn crept through the blinds. And in that quiet, I made my decision. I would gather everything. Every lie, every secret, cataloged and precise. Over the next 6 months, I made myself vanish. I let her feel invincible. The safer they feel, the sloppier they become. I brought in Olivia Thames, ex-CIA, now a forensic accountant. Brilliant, surgical, untraceable. I told her I didn't want revenge. I wanted leverage, the kind you don't argue with. Then came Marcus Shaw, my attorney, calm in court, cutthroat in preparation. Together, we dissected the marriage like a crime scene. We uncovered the second phone. Then came the shady payments, Venmo notes sent to Melissa C., her alias at the hotel Jasper always booked. Messages like, "Last night was amazing, and you forgot your tie again." I didn't weep. I documented. I screenshot. I archived. She thought her spa weekends were foolproof. But ride receipts have memories. So do lobby cameras. And boutique wine bars don't lie. What they never saw coming was that I wasn't just watching. I was turning their recklessness into ammunition. The condo in Savannah she'd planned to run off to, purchased through a trust, my trust. The joint account she'd been siphoning from, frozen, secure, untouchable. She could reinvent herself all she liked, but it would be from scratch. I built that life, brick by brick, and I wasn't about to let her stroll away with the house. But the real knife? It wasn't the cheating. It was the ease of her betrayal, the way she chuckled over dinner, the gentle affection she showed our daughter, the casual kisses she planted on my cheek like I was already gone. That's what gutted me, the performance, pretending everything was fine while secretly planning her exit like a weekend getaway. So I made a plan too, not to flee, but to end it. My escape didn't involve beaches or lovers. It involved court filings, digital trails, and statements so solid they could fracture her world from the inside. She choreographed a reveal. I composed the finale. By the time the graduation party came around, I wasn't anxious. I was exact. She had rehearsed her speech, picked her cream and gold dress, just glamorous enough to attract attention. She thought she was claiming her freedom. She had no idea she was walking straight into collapse. The venue sparkled. The Asheville skyline shimmered in the background. The waitstaff moved like clockwork. Champagne glasses chimed. Emily lit up the space with her joy, and for a moment, it nearly broke me. But I stayed composed. Because I already knew how this would end. Nearly. But I didn't break. The pain had passed. What remained was focus, sharp, unwavering, cold as steel. Delilah played the role of charming hostess with flawless ease, radiant smile, light laughter. Her fingers lightly brushed Jasper's arm when no one was looking. Only someone watching closely, someone like me, could see the mask beneath the sparkle. I stayed seated at the head table, letting the champagne roll across my tongue. Waiting. She stood. Time seemed to hold its breath. Laughter stilled. Even the air paused. With grace rehearsed over years, she lifted her glass. "A toast," she said, her voice polished like a sermon, "to Emily, whose spirit and love guide us forward. And to all of you, for being part of this beautiful journey." The crowd clapped. I remained silent. Then it happened, a barely visible change in her smile. And then, the blow. "And while today marks a new beginning for Emily," she continued, sweet and serene, "it also starts a new chapter for me, one that doesn't include Lucas. No drama, no raised voice. That was the cruelest part." She delivered it like a dinner recommendation, not a revelation, not the death knell of a marriage, just a breezy aside, floated on the bubbles of rosé. Jasper looked at her, then at me. Their hands met briefly under the linen-draped table. Coward. All eyes turned to me. Some expected a confrontation. Others braced for a scene. A few wore thin veils of sympathy. I gave them none of it. I rose, smoothly, calmly, slipped a hand into my jacket and pulled out a thick cream envelope, every motion deliberate. Absolute. I walked to her, not with fury, but clarity. I placed the envelope beside her plate. Neat. Precise. For later, I said quietly. She blinked. Her hand hovered near the envelope, uncertain. She didn't open it. Not yet. I turned to Emily, kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you," I whispered. "Always." She stared up at me, still, quiet, confused. I offered no explanation, only truth, spoken through presence. Then I walked away. The rooftop was silent. No applause, no laughter. Just an invisible wave of tension spreading like ripples on a glassy lake. In the elevator, as the doors slid shut, I let go. For the first time in over a year, I actually breathed. Inside the envelope, war, dressed in the language of law, divorce papers, neat, final, signed, an affidavit listing her betrayal in indisputable detail, dates, hotel names, transaction records, Jasper's Tesla gate code, an exact match to her initials. Also included, a motion petitioning for full control of our joint estate, citing fraud, digital payments, fake spa bills, the condo deed transferred back to me weeks before. And at the top, a handwritten note. "Every performance deserves a closing act. Here's yours." This wasn't vengeance, it was evidence, and evidence doesn't fade. An hour later, tucked away in a Pinewood rental cabin, bourbon in hand, my phone buzzed. Emily. Mom screamed so loud the waiters dropped a tray. I smiled. Not from spite, not from victory, but because, at last, she heard me. Not with ears, but with truth. Her perfect facade had cracked, in full view of the same people she'd once dazzled. That wasn't my goal. It was just inevitable. She never thought I'd push back. She relied on my silence. That night, headlights swept across what used to be our driveway for the final time. I heard the car before I saw it. I didn't move. I stayed on the couch, bourbon in hand, the room heavy with quiet finality. Around me, neatly labeled boxes, closet, bathroom, misc. No shouting, no broken plates. Just quiet, surgical dismantling. Every item wrapped in the same calculated care she'd used to remove me from her life. Delilah walked in like a stranger in a gallery. Jasper trailed her. No smirk this time. His rooftop bravado was gone. He looked lost, like a teenager in his father's suit. Silent. "You embarrassed me," Delilah hissed, her voice sharp. "In front of Emily, in front of everyone. What were you thinking?" I stood, slowly, calmly. "I thought the truth deserved a spotlight," I said. She stared at me, stunned. Then her eyes dropped to the envelope still in her hand, now creased. Her manicured fingers trembled. "You planned this," she accused, breathless. "I did," I answered. "The same way you rehearsed that toast." Jasper stepped forward, grasping for dignity. "You could have kept this private. That was cruel." I turned to him. "Private? Like your texts from my kitchen? Or the spa retreats you disguised as youth mentoring?" He froze. I leaned in slightly, voice calm. "You used her initials for your gate code. You thought no one would notice?" Delilah blinked. "We're staying at the condo," she snapped, "until this blows over." I nearly laughed. "No, you're not," I said. "You don't own it anymore." She staggered. "What?" "If you'd bothered to check your email or read the documents you signed without thinking, you'd know. I bought you out. 3 weeks ago." I folded my arms. "You can call Clara Minon. She handled the paperwork. Thoroughly." Jasper stepped back, the truth beginning to sting. Delilah opened her mouth, but words failed her. "You can't do this," she whispered. "You're destroying me." I shook my head. "No, Delilah, you did that. I just stopped shielding you from the fallout." She reached toward a box labeled Bathroom Master, as if holding something might bring her power back. "You were always so calm," she murmured. You thought I wasn't paying attention," I interrupted. She met my gaze, and in that instant everything false fell away. No more lies, no more pretense, just raw, exposed reality. I opened the front door. "The boxes are yours. Nothing else." No protest, no final plea. They left. I didn't slam the door. I closed it softly, so they could feel it shut. In the days that followed, consequences unfurled across the city like ink in clear water. Delilah tried to rewrite the narrative. At brunches, in yoga studios, on wellness retreats wrapped in hashtags. He was distant. He stopped caring. I needed more. But the story slipped from her grasp. Because then came Valerie, Jasper's wife, or ex-wife now. No fireworks, no confrontations, just a quiet visit to the Herald Tribune, and proof. Photos, texts, bank statements broken down to the cent. But the one that cut deepest? A screenshot of a message Delilah had sent Jasper. "Lucas won't fight back. He's too polite to cause a scene." I actually laughed when I saw it. The headline above the article was brutal. "Behind the grin, the hidden world of Asheville's golden couple." Overnight, public affection dissolved. The Wellness Foundation dropped her from its board. Her invite to the gala was revoked. She wiped her online profiles clean, tried to salvage her image with a shaky, emotional video, her voice brittle, her expression strained. The internet showed no mercy. Then Emily stopped answering her calls. That one left a scar. About a week later, she appeared in the lobby of my building. Gone was the polish, the practiced charm. She looked hollow. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. "No," I replied. "They're turning on me," she murmured. "They." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the same people who toasted you under chandeliers while you spun stories?" She exhaled, a sound more like surrender than breath. "You always knew, didn't you?" I gave a small nod and turned away. Around that time, I partnered with an organization supporting men navigating contentious divorces. We formed a group. 10 showed up the first night. Quiet, angry, broken. But slowly they opened up. Not about revenge, but recovery, survival. Courtrooms aren't built for performance. No mood lighting, no elegance, just hard benches, recycled air, and the sound of paper slicing open old wounds. Delilah arrived 15 minutes late. Gray suit, sharp lines. The stance she once used to pose for social photographers. Her makeup was flawless, her expression unreadable. But her eyes darted too often, her blinking was too quick, and she kept pulling at her sleeves, an old tic that betrayed her inner collapse. Jasper didn't accompany her. He sat in the back, flipping through a magazine he clearly wasn't reading. No ring, no glance exchanged, no support. Her lawyer, young, camera-ready, fresh off a podcast tour on empowered divorce, arrived with a pink briefcase and a speech she'd clearly rehearsed. She spoke of Delilah's sacrifices, of my supposed emotional vacancy, of a woman chasing worth. Then my attorney, Alex Sloan, rose. No flash, no fire, just steady clarity. He stepped up to the judge and handed over a thick file, more like an old phone book than a case exhibit. "Your Honor," he said, calm and firm. "Inside is documented evidence of infidelity, financial misconduct, and fraudulent behavior. Everything is time-stamped, authenticated, and supported by metadata. There are notarized statements, surveillance logs, and matched communication records." The judge flipped open to the first page. That was all it took. The messages told the full story. Delilah laughing at our marriage, calling it a business deal, joking with Jasper that I was too courteous to resist. Her attorney scrambled. "This could be doctored, deep fakes, AI." Alex didn't blink. Verified through carrier data, independently confirmed. The judge nodded. Admissible. Then came the financial audit. Olivia tracked every misused dollar. The healing spa trip. The luxury condo in Savannah supposedly meant for Emily's education. The secret accounts. The fake Venmo alias, Melissa C. Every cent accounted for. Each lie exposed. Jasper's name appeared even more than hers. Turns out, betrayal was a partnership. When the verdict was read, the judge delivered it like a surgeon. The house, mine. The business, untouched. The penthouse, preserved, post-split. Retirement funds, frozen and reassigned. Alimony, minimal and temporary. Legal costs, hers to bear. Delilah didn't cry, but her face folded into that tight, hollow expression people wear when they realize the door they walked through leads not to freedom, but to isolation. Jasper didn't wait. He slipped out before the judge brought the gavel down. A few days later, Delilah sent me an email, not to say sorry, but to explain. "This wasn't my plan," she wrote. "I just needed to feel alive. I thought Jasper would give me that. I thought I deserved a better narrative." I read it once. Closed the browser. She wasn't writing to me. She was appealing to the memory of the man who used to soften her guilt. That man no longer existed. 2 weeks later, I received a message from Valerie, Jasper's former partner. "He moved back in with his brother," she wrote. "Didn't say a word." I stared at the message. No rage, just finality. Delilah had broken a family for a man who vanished the second the fantasy shattered. Her grand escape led her to a rented apartment she didn't own, with a silence she couldn't dress up. Men like Jasper excel at one thing: destruction. They're never around to rebuild. Months passed. Emily and I began seeing each other weekly in Atlanta. Thai food, real conversation, laughter with a little ache beneath it. One evening, as we walked a quiet street, she said, "I used to think you just let Mom control the story, that you never fought back." I asked, "And now?" She smiled, soft, reflective. "Now I get it. You were fighting a war no one could see. No shouting, no spectacle, just strength in silence. That meant more than anything Delilah ever claimed." I later joined a local group, men recovering from betrayal. Not therapy, not rage circles, just honest voices in a room, sharing what society tells them to keep to themselves. Not because it's brutal, because it's quiet. I told my story once. Not every detail, just the truth. She told me during our daughter's graduation that she was leaving me for someone I once trusted. I gave her an envelope and walked away. Because when silence is shaped with intention, it can pierce deeper than fury ever could. I never remarried, never chased closure. Instead, I moved into a penthouse that overlooked the city I helped build. Spacious. Still. Black coffee. Clean mornings. A kind of peace you can't fake with scented candles or couples therapy. I still have the envelope. The original. Folded and untouched. It sits in a carved wooden box on my bookshelf. One day, Emily found it. "You kept this?" she asked, surprised. "Not as a trophy," I told her. "As a reminder. Not all endings bring closure. Sometimes they just bring clarity." She nodded and gently returned it to its place. That night I stood in front of the mirror, not to count the years, not to admire the survival, but to see. To really see the man who endured betrayal without breaking his voice. A man who didn't just lose a partner, he found himself in the silence she left behind. Smiling doesn't come easily now, but when it does, it's real, and that's enough. He didn't scream, didn't plead, didn't smear her name. He simply handed her an envelope and walked away. And in that quiet, she finally heard what all the noise had buried. Clearer than champagne toasts, sharper than deceit. This is where the story ends. Feel free to share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching, And if this resonated with you, there are more stories waiting on this channel. Until next time.